The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Grad School to Go or Not to Go, offered by Oregon State University's Alumni Association in partnership with Oregon State's Professional and Continuing Education Unit. I'm Greg Aronoff, the Marketing and Communications Manager here with Professional and Continuing Ed. And I'm joined by Yulia Dennis from the Alumni Association. And today we have Karen Hansen and Jessica Barker joining us. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we get started, I'm going to share our agenda for the day. I work for Professional and Continuing Education, which is the non-credit arm of the university. We partner with colleges across campus to offer open enrollment classes to the public on subjects ranging from workforce training to wood science. And we're always excited to continue our partnership with Yulia Dennis from the Alumni Association. And I'm sure some of you have joined us for some of our other webinars on the career series. So we're excited to have Yulia and Karen and Jessica here today to talk about grad school. So with that, I am going to make Yulia the presenter and we'll start.
Fantastic. Wonderful, Greg. Thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to put this viewer mode. Just a moment. Present mode. Okay. Great. Can you see my screen okay?
I can, yep.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining. I'm really excited to present on this webinar. I think it goes without saying that this topic is relevant, and we had already considered doing this earlier, and just the timing worked out. And we had over 150 people sign up and are interested in this webinar, and I'm watching the number of attendees grow. We're over 70 now attendees. I think that it just shows how much this topic is needed right now. And so thank you everyone for joining. And Greg, I always enjoy partnering with you on these webinars. So thank you so much for hosting us. Greg had already did the introduction. So we're going to do the presentation, follow up, and then we'll have some contact information as well at the end. I want to introduce myself formally. My name is Yulia Dennis, and many of you have joined me in the past for webinars, and I really appreciate that. I work for the Oregon State University's Alumni Association. We are so eager and are here to help the alumni community and the OSU community with this new transition that we're all experiencing. If you have a career question, please reach out to me. I can help you with anything related to whatever is going on for you in your career. If you yourself are thinking of grad school and you're just not sure, contact me. If you want your resume reviewed, or let's say you want to talk one-on-one, happy to do a coaching session with you. Or if you want to volunteer and talk with students or recent grads, anything that's related to career stuff, I'm your contact person. And like I said, we've at the Alumni Association have really tried hard to meet alumni needs where they're at. So thank you for joining, and contact me if you have questions. Just that feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar via the chat box. Greg's going to be monitoring those. He also received the many questions that people submitted through the registration form. He's going to be managing that process for us. And we will be addressing questions throughout the webinar, so be sure to submit those. And a link to the presentation will be emailed. And should we not cover something that's important to you, contact me afterwards, and I'd be glad to assist you. And then the webinar overview, we're just going to be looking at various things related to graduate studies. Is pursuing graduate studies right for you? We're going to explore the necessary skill set, the idea of master's versus PhD, work experience, etc. We're going to look at how do you identify options and the application process and the next steps. And I also forgot to mention in my intro that I also have a master's degree, and I've worked in admission role too. So this topic is near and dear to my heart and my own experience as well. And that's why I really do encourage you to reach out to me as a resource for any questions related to graduate studies. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Karen. I so appreciate Karen taking the time to speak with us today, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Yulia. Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Hansen, And I also have a master's degree. I earned it from Colorado State University back in the 90s. And since then, I have had the pleasure of working at a few different universities with undergrad and graduate students along the way. And always with a common theme of, my roles have always involved helping students sort of figure out their goals and map out ways to achieve those goals, set up and coordinate programs to support students in their success. So for the past 6 or 7 years, I've been with the OSU Graduate School. I'm the Director of Graduate Student Success there, and I'm really glad to be here. I'm so excited about this topic, and thank you, Yulia, for inviting me.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so excited to have you here. And Karen is a wonderful campus partner. I love working with you, Karen. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you. And next, I'm going to introduce Jessica. Jessica's one of our alumni from 2018. And I'm so grateful, Jessica, that you've come back and are sharing your wisdom with our OSU students and alumni. And I'll let you introduce yourself next.
Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Barker, and as Yulia said, I got my MPH from OSU in 2018. During that time, I was fortunate enough to work with the graduate school with the GRA, which funded my education while I was there. And during that time, I worked in the recruitment and financial department. And so I got to work with potential graduate students and kind of share a peer-to-peer experience for them. So as an alumni, I'm always thankful to come back and have more discussions with potential grad students just to kind of share ideas and kind of tips and tricks I've learned. And I'm going to get into my background a little bit more later, so I'll turn it back to Yulia.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. And I think that your experience is going to be really great for our alumni to hear. And next, we are going to have a poll question. And the poll question is, what best describes your current education status? And I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Please answer it, and then Greg's going to give the responses.
Okay, so as the responses come in, right now the overwhelming majority is current undergrad student, and it looks like graduated over 2 years ago is about second, and then graduated 2019-2020 is in third place.
Fantastic, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And we'll definitely talk about things that are related to the student perspective. And if you're a current student and you're about to graduate and you need career help, also reach out to me, and I'm glad to help the graduating or the graduates, the recent grads. And something to note too is that if you're a recent grad, I do recommend you take some time to work or do an internship or something between pursuing grad school. Just going to throw that out there, and then we'll have Jessica and Karen share more. And thank you for the responses for that. And the next person who's going to speak is Karen, and she's going to share with us about undergrad versus grad school.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of you might be wondering, well, is graduate school just sort of a continuation of undergrad? In some ways, yes, you do go to classes and you'll be at university, but there's really a lot of ways that graduate school is different. And so I wanted to spend just a minute or two just kind of talking about what those differences are. Probably the biggest difference is that graduate school requires a very, very deep sense of curiosity and interest in a particular field. So whereas in undergrad, you have the back core, you're getting a broad skill set, and yes, you do have a major. Graduate school, you are really, really focused and doing a deep dive into an area of interest. It requires a real strong sense of self-direction, self-motivation, and as I said, just an extraordinary sense of curiosity about a particular field or interest area. Many graduate degrees have a research component, which means that there's a lot of independent work involved, and you're really discovering. You're not so much just a receiver of knowledge, but you're now making a shift and becoming kind of a generator of knowledge. You're creating new research and new things, making new discoveries that haven't existed before. So it's kind of, it is a really exciting kind of a thing to dive into. And another kind of key difference is that you're more of a peer with faculty. So whereas as an undergrad, you know, faculty, at least for me, we're always sort of up on a pedestal. Like they know so much, they know everything. And as a graduate student, you're much more of a peer in terms of a researcher and a professional. So those, I think, are the key differences.
Thank you, Karen. Really appreciate that explanation. And we are going to do another poll question to get to know you a little bit better for the audience. And this one is about your employment status. So as we talk about grad school, we're also going to talk about funding. So go ahead and answer that. And I recognize, especially since many of your students, you might be in the school but not working. And so if that's the case for you, go ahead and select the last one, which is unclear about direction, and we'll assume that that could be that you're also full-time in school too. So that could be your option.
All right, so as the responses come in, it looks like the majority have voted. So number one, work part-time in school, followed by work full-time and not in school. And Yulia, we can let those come in, but there was a very timely question that I can ask if you want.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and ask that.
Okay, perfect. So the question is, will the university be at all forgiving about lack of experience due to COVID-19? I had a job lined up for my gap year that fell through due to the virus.
Karen, would you be able to answer that one?
Sure. So each graduate program at OSU and really at most universities operates independently. So there's not a university level standard for admission in terms of having a certain amount of experience. Certain graduate programs might typically require a certain level of experience. So I would say if there's a program that you're particularly interested in, I would contact them directly. First, you can look online, look on their website, you can see what their admission requirements typically are. And if you have any concerns or questions, just go ahead and contact them and ask them a question. Their programs are used to interested prospective students asking questions.
Great, thank you, Karen. And then next, Karen's going to share with us about how to pay for graduate school.
And I think we can close the poll. So it looks like nearly 50% work part-time and in school. And then, yep, the other one was work full-time and not in school.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so the tricky question, how do you pay for graduate school? So all the methods that are available for undergrads still exist for graduate students. So all those traditional methods, your family might help you. Many of you are working, so you can pay for some of that on your own. There are student loans and so forth. Some of you, it sounds like, are working full time, and so there are sometimes opportunities for employers to pay for education. But then there's some additional funding sources at the graduate level. The most common source of funding is through a graduate assistantship. So there are a couple of kinds of graduate assistantship. There's graduate research assistantship, which is normally called a GRA, or a graduate teaching assistantship, which is a GTA. And for those positions, you get paid to work up to 20 hours a week. So you get, a small salary or stipend for that, enough typically to live modestly on. And here's the good part, you get 100% of your tuition paid for. So if you can find a graduate assistantship, you're doing very well. And then there's another kind of award that's called a fellowship. That's similar to a graduate assistantship. Fellowships are highly competitive, but still worth going after. And that's similar to the graduate assistantship in that you get your tuition paid for and typically a stipend, a living allowance, but you don't have to work for it. So you're just there doing your own graduate work and getting paid to do it.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Karen. And when I did my master's, I also had a GTA, a graduate teaching assistantship, and they paid 100% of my tuition as stipend. So if you're able to do that, that is a very highly recommended thing to do. And contacting the instructors or the faculty members is a good way to figure out, hey, do they have a GTA or GRA available? And then Karen's also going to share with us the various types of advanced degrees. And that was very confusing to me when I first started looking at, do I want to pursue a graduate degree? And so Karen's going to share with us the basics of what the different degrees are.
Okay, so I love this this image here, the triangle on the screen. That's great. So all of you on this webinar would be familiar with, as we kind of move up from the bottom of the triangle, we've got your high school, your associates, if you stopped along the way and got an associate's, and then you moved on to a bachelor's degree. So now the graduate degrees are the ones that are higher up there in that. The first level, if you will, is a master's degree. And that typically is a 2, sometimes a 3-year process. There's different types of master's degrees. The 2 that are featured there in the triangle are Master of Arts and Master of Science. There are many others, but they all have a master's in common. Some master's degrees are course-based and may have like a project or a capstone at the end, and some are a thesis-based, so those have a research component. Many students stop at the master's degree, and some get a master's degree on their way to an even higher, the highest level of degree. We call that the terminal degree at the very top, and those can be either a doctoral degree, which is typically you'll hear about a PhD. There are other types of doctoral degrees as well. And then there's also something called a professional degree, which is things like an MD, which is like a physician, or a JD, which is a law degree. But those are the highest degrees that you can go in those fields. And it typically takes, I would say, on average, maybe 4 to 6, maybe even up to 7, but generally 4 to 6 years to achieve a doctoral degree.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen, for that explanation. And it's definitely helpful to see that graph there. And I think that we really wanted to make sure that the audience got to know a personal journey of why grad school is a good option. So we're going to have Jessica share her own story of what prompted her to want to go to grad school.
Okay, everyone, it's going to be a little bit of a story. So I can honestly say that my journey to grad school was not considered traditional. I graduated high school and I didn't really have a direction. My family didn't go to college. I would have been a first-generation college student. So I went straight into the workforce, and I worked in the workforce for quite a while. It wasn't until I was 25 when I decided to go get my bachelor's degree. Again, I didn't really have a direction. I didn't know what I was doing. I was taking ceramics, I was taking a math class. I was just trying to test it out and see really what I would enjoy doing, but I just really didn't have any direction I wanted to go. And then I stumbled into a public health class, and I kind of fell in love. I felt like I found my journey. I felt like I found what I wanted to do. So once I was in the public health, I got onto the track and I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I started at a community college and I did that for 2 years and worked my way to the bachelor's degree. And I ended up going straight from my bachelor's degree into my master's degree, but that's strictly because I had worked for so long before going to school. So I definitely do recommend getting some work experience, but I kind of flip-flopped it. I worked all the way up until my bachelor's degree. So when I decided it was time to go to grad school, I started doing research. I researched programs, I researched jobs that I wanted and what program would fit in line with that. I visited OSU campus an entire year before I even applied. And I just started reaching out to anyone I could. I reached out to the faculty, I reached out to the graduate school. I was a first generation college student. I didn't know what I was doing. So I really just reached out to anyone I could. I talked to people on the phone, I reached out to alumni. And then once I got into the program, I really leaned on my professors and my cohort. Because again, I didn't really have the wherewithal to navigate this. So it was really helpful to have people to lean on and to talk to while I was going to graduate school. But I think the most important thing for me was just understanding why I wanted to do grad school and understanding my purpose for it. And it's really what fueled me through the entire program.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then we'd love to hear more about why you chose your particular field and your program.
Yeah, so these are just some bullet points that I kind of came up with when I was trying to decide my process. You know, and like I said, once I took a public health class, I was kind of hooked and I knew that's where I wanted to go. But once I was in graduate school, I was really able to connect with people that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to connect with. I got to do research with people from Harvard. My professors were sending my information to people all over the country that I wouldn't have necessarily had the network for. And really what fueled me was wanting to be more competitive in the job market. I knew that I wanted to go into a leadership position. That's where I felt like I would be utilized the best. And I knew that I would need a graduate degree to do that. So once I decided that was the case, I just started researching jobs that I would want, and I knew that I needed to be competitive. And so the MPH allowed me to do that. And also just getting a deeper knowledge. Like I said, once I fell in love with public health, I wanted to know everything there was I could learn about it. So the more classes I took, the deeper my knowledge got, and the more confident I was in the field that I was working in. And then also, you know, as just being a first generation college student, I really wanted to make my family proud. I was doing something that others hadn't done. And so I just really wanted to continue on and show my family and my close friends that, you know, it's possible. I've had family members since I've gone to school, go back to school, you know, in their 40s. And it was really nice to have that personal sense of accomplishment. So that was also kind of what fueled me through the program.
Thank you, Jessica. And I would say that my experience and my reasoning for going to grad school are very similar. And I also had a similar story of following up on various people in their professions, and then that sense of personal accomplishment. So can definitely relate to that. We're going to do a poll question next. And our poll question this time is for the audience. We'd love to know what interests you most about going to graduate school. So go ahead and launch that, and then Greg will read off the results.
Okay, as the responses come in quickly, they're kind of all over the board. So it looks like getting a good job is number one, closely followed by enjoying the learning process. Yeah, that's so fascinating. But right now, yeah, it looks like getting a good job is pulling away.
That's great. Thanks, everyone. And then that leads really well into Karen talking about the benefits, and getting a good job and enjoying the learning process are all definitely really great benefits of a graduate degree.
Okay, yes. This is so exciting to talk about. I love graduate education. So yeah, I was really excited to hear that so many of you are so interested in just the learning process itself. So anyway, yeah, so you can become really an expert in a particular field, which is pretty amazing to just know so much. Like Jessica was talking about, she wanted to know everything there was to know about public health. And so that's definitely an advantage. If your sights are set on a PhD, only about 2% of the population actually achieve that high of education. So you are definitely among experts if you go that route. A graduate degree can also really open doors to more careers. So, you know, there are many jobs out there that actually require a graduate degree. And so part of what we've been talking about is to sort of do your research. We're going to talk a little bit more about, you know, what that research looks like. But for sure, if there are jobs and careers that you're interested in, find out, you know, if getting a graduate degree could help advance you into that career or launch your career further from where you're at right now. Graduate degrees are also definitely linked to higher earning power on average. And then of course it varies across fields and across locations. But on average, those with graduate degrees make 30% more than those with a bachelor's degree. So there's definitely a financial advantage to getting a graduate degree. And then there's also just the skills that you'll develop as you become, as you work through, the rigors of graduate school. Invariably, you will achieve deep skills in problem solving, communication, networking, learning how to persist through failure. All these kinds of things these are the kind of skills that employers want, no matter what your job or interest area is. So those are really some of the key benefits that I would say.
I so agree with you, Karen, on all of that. Greg, let's do some questions now. I know we got a lot of audience questions, and I'd love to throw in maybe 2 here for Karen and Jessica.
Yeah, we had a ton of great questions. So the first one is about timing. Is it advised to take time off between a bachelor's degree and a master's degree to gain work experience via an internship and job, or go straight into a master's? And then someone else asked, can you go straight into a PhD without a master's?
Karen, let's go ahead and have you answer that one.
Okay, so there were 2 parts. So, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong as far as going in directly after a bachelor's degree into starting your into a graduate program. I think there's advantages to both. One clear advantage to getting some experience in between is that just having that experience helps you really refine your goals. You might think you know what you want, or maybe you don't have any clue, but sometimes just having a little bit of experience really helps you assess, oh, I do really like this, or I don't really like this. And so before you invest so much time and energy and money into a graduate program, you should really be sure that it's what you want. If you're sure it's what you want, coming right out of undergrad, then go for it. The other part of that question was, can you go directly into a PhD from a bachelor's degree? In many cases, yes. That really depends on the university and that particular program. So again, we're going to talk so much about doing your homework and doing your research in advance of applying. But when you start looking at admission requirements and looking at programs, some doctoral programs will admit students right out of a bachelor's degree, and some want you to start with a master's, and then you can, possibly go on to a PhD after that.
Thank you, Karen. And I'll tie in my example too, that I took a couple of years off. I taught high school, and I realized I didn't want to teach high school. And that helped me to refine, because I had initially thought about going into teaching. So it was helpful to me to take that year or 2 off and then come back. And then Jessica, how about for you? What's your sense of the response to that question?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Getting some work experience, it really actually helped me in my application process, because I had real life experience to pull from when I was trying to write personal statements. And even when I would talk with faculty, I was able to kind of relate my goals and my graduate, potential graduate experience to real life experiences that I had in the workforce. Again, I flip-flopped mine, and I did my work experience before I went to my bachelor's, but I definitely recommend trying to get some work experience or internship that you can pull real life experiences from, especially for the application process.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Karen, we're going to move on and have you talk about the negatives of a graduate degree.
Okay, yeah, so we call this slide cons of a graduate degree. I'm not sure if I would say they're cons. I think I would say these are just considerations. So graduate school is a big investment of lots of your resources. So I would just, there are reasons to go to graduate school. There's reasons not to go to graduate school. And so just really give it some good thought. So time is a serious consideration. So as we said, between master's and PhD, you could be spending anywhere between 2 to 7 years getting your graduate degree. And so that's a significant amount of time. And so you have to be sort of willing to have delayed gratification when some of your friends and peers might be, getting jobs and buying homes and taking fancy vacations. You're still going to be a poor college student. So just kind of keep that in mind. Funds. So depending on how much student loans you may have accrued as an undergrad and kind of what your personal financial situation is and how you're able to pay for graduate school, funding is definitely a consideration. I know that lots of students at the undergrad level, are carrying large amounts of debt. And so I would just really consider that strongly before you jump into a graduate program, or look real hard for one where you can get one of those assistantships or a fellowship or some other way that maybe employer paid, some way where you don't have to take on additional debt if you can avoid it. Compatibility with the field. So as we said earlier, whereas, graduate degrees can definitely open more doors, I would do your homework and find out if you're, depending on what your career interests are, does the job that you want actually require a graduate degree? So find that out, because if you can get into your desired career without doing a grad degree, maybe you would choose to go for that. And then just a sense of competition, I suppose. It's not necessarily easy to go to grad school just because you want to. It's competitive. Admissions are competitive. We encourage grad students or future grad students to plan to apply to at least 3 to 5 universities and hope that they get into 1 or maybe 2 to choose from. And also, if you're considering grad school, you're probably a pretty bright person. You're probably used to being near the top of among your peers in terms of GPA. And so when you get into grad school, everyone there is sort of similar to you. And so it's sort of like, whoa, you're kind of looking around and thinking, I thought I was pretty smart. Now I'm just sort of one of the pack. So it's exciting because you're around lots of smart people doing great things, but also, it's a competitive environment. And so you just need to be prepared for that. Definitely have your support systems, know who your support systems are before you begin.
That's really great advice. And then the other advice too I would add is for that compatibility with the field, talk to people in the field you're looking to get into. That's going to be the best way to find out if a graduate degree is really going to be a good choice for you. Greg, do we have additional questions that you'd like to ask at this time from the audience?
We do, yeah. One of the questions came in was, it's kind of a two-parter. What makes you qualified for grad school, and how do you know you are academically ready for the challenge of a graduate program?
Really great question. Karen, can you speak on that?
Yeah, can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, sure. It's sort of a two-parter. So it's, what makes you qualified for grad school, and how do you know you are academically ready for the challenge of a graduate program?
Okay, great questions. Okay, so if you're admitted, you belong there. So, so there's typically a committee of faculty in any graduate program who you're applying to, and it's a rigorous process. They're looking at all kinds of things. They're looking at your prior grades. They're looking at any kind of work or internship kinds of history. They're reading that personal statement. They're reading letters of recommendation that you're required to get. Sometimes it will involve an interview or a personal visit. So it's a pretty involved process to get admitted. And so I think you can be pretty confident. You can be very confident that if that team of faculty decides to admit you, you belong there. You are smart enough to be there, and you definitely belong there. The requirements to get in vary. It really depends on the university and the graduate program. At OSU, there are some university level requirements, like a minimum GPA of 3.0, but it's really program specific. So you kind of have to look at each program to see what they're requiring. Some are going to require like a GRE, which is an entrance test similar to like the ACT or SAT that you might have taken as an undergrad, but they're looking at all sorts of factors.
Great, thank you. And then we're going to have Jessica share about how she did her research in order to find her program.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably a topic we're kind of driving home is to do your research, but I can't stress it enough. So develop those relationships. Like I said, I visited OSU an entire year before I even applied. So you apply a year in advance. So I really came and visited 2 years early, and I spoke with faculty over the phone. I met with any faculty that I was able to. I was just trying to develop those relationships early on. So if I were to be admitted, I would have those resources available to me. You can use LinkedIn to network. My LinkedIn will be put up on this presentation later, and you're welcome to reach out to me on it. And just use it. It has alumni on there. It has current students. You can kind of see and reach out to see if you can develop those relationships. You know, and your job is to meet people, is to just network as much as you can and get a deeper knowledge of who's working in the field, who are you going to be working with if you were in grad school. And for me, my biggest thing was I researched my job first before I decided on my program. I knew that my ultimate goal was to be a director of public health. And so I researched what program or what job or what degree is needed for that. And so that's what kind of guided my decision to what program that I went to. Was I knew what the job was, and so I kind of worked backwards, and now I'm trying to work up to that. It's kind of my ultimate goal. So if you have a job that maybe is just your first step after a potential graduate degree, just research it and see what you need for it.
Thank you. Greg, do you have additional questions that you'd want to plug in here to Jessica?
Yeah, we have a lot of great questions. So one that just came in is talking about sort of a work-life balance. And the question is, how challenging is it to balance a family and personal life with the demands of grad school?
Jessica, go ahead and answer that one.
Yeah, it's a great question. Since I was an older student, I'm married. I don't have any children, but I do have a husband, and I'm in my 30s. So it was a little challenging to become a student again and be a student in your 30s and juggle the life of a married woman and a student life. But you know, I really stress leaning on your cohort, having people that you can rely on and lean on that are going through the same experience as you. It helps you separate it. So I didn't always come home and have to lean on my husband even more than I would normally. And you know, you just have to kind of take it day by day and do your best. You're an adult and you have responsibilities, and you have to remember that. But you're also a student, so you have those responsibilities too. So I think it's just important to find your support system and just do your best and try to balance it as best as you can. I was a GRA, so I was working 20 hours a week plus school, which was manageable. It was stressful, but manageable. So I think it's just a matter of finding your support system, finding your resources, and using them to the best of your ability.
Great, thank you. Greg, do you have other questions that we can plug in here?
Yes. So one that just came in is, what is the difference in workload from a bachelor's degree compared to a master's program?
Let's have Karen answer that one first, and then Jessica will have you answer after.
Okay. You know, so I think per credit is a good way to answer that question. So at the undergrad level, you know, at OSU anyway, full-time as an undergrad is 12 credits. So most undergrads, if you're going full-time, usually take anywhere between 12 and 16 credits. Full-time as a graduate student is 9 credits. Some like assistantships and scholarships and things require 12. So it's, you know, if a graduate student attends full-time, it's typically anywhere between 9 and 12, or maybe even a bit more. But I would say those workloads are fairly equivalent. It's a different type of work. I think I said it, there's so much more independent work. If your degree involves research, you're going to be operating much more independently. There may be times when you don't have any courses at all but you're basically working full time on your independent research. Jessica, would you answer that any differently?
No, I definitely agree. I think that what we kind of mentioned earlier, that the expectation that you have as a graduate student is much higher than an undergraduate. Your professors look at you as peers, and potential researchers in the field that they have been working in for many years. So they really expect you to put in the time and the work and to read the expected reading and to do well on the papers. You're not just, a lot of times you're not just writing papers just to write them. They're actually going to be published, or they're going to be used in the community. So your level of work is elevated for sure. It may not be, quantity may not be more than you've experienced in your undergrad, but I think the expectation is just much higher when you're in graduate school.
Great, thank you both so much for that. And then Karen, I want to turn it over back to you. What else should people research when they're considering grad school?
Yeah, so one thing to sort of keep in mind is that a lot of programs, even with the exact same title, if you're comparing, similar programs across different universities, they can be very, very different in how they're structured, what their key areas of focus are. So really do the digging. Find out, what the faculty there in the program that you're interested in are researching. So like one physics degree is not the same physics degree somewhere else. They could be studying one topic area very deeply at one institution and really be known for something quite different at a different institution. So kind of look at that. So what are the faculty doing? Also look at where are their graduates getting jobs. So often, when you're kind of poking around on university websites or kind of making those contacts, like Jessica said, like talk to whoever you can talk to, they'll usually have, current students and also alums from programs who you can connect with and sort of find out, what are you working on? Where did you get a job? Where are you hoping to get a job? Where have you found internships? What partners are you collaborating with for lab? All those kinds of things really are distinguishing characteristics from one program to another. Also, depending on what your personal situation is, you can find out details like if the program is kind of cohort based, if it's important to you to kind of move through the program with the same group of people, so you have those really strong bonds, look for a cohort based program. If you're working full-time or have a family and you really are more interested in attending a program part-time, if that's what suits your needs, make sure that your program allows that, if there's an option to do that. And then also, if they have funding opportunities like graduate assistantships, that's something that's real important to find out.
Very good advice. Greg, any questions from the audience that we can bring up right now as well?
Yeah, I like this one. It's a little bit longer, but I think it's a good question. So it is. I'm interested in furthering my education, like a master's, to open new career opportunities, but I'm not sure of exactly what I want to do. I'm concerned that without having a plan before entering graduate school, I would become overly specialized and limit my future career options. How important is it to know exactly what field and job you want after graduate school?
That's a really great question, and I will add in a comment before I turn it over to Karen and Jessica. Definitely talk to people in your field, because I have worked with people who have gotten even PhDs, didn't really even know what the field required, and then were not qualified enough, but then overqualified for the other positions they might have been interested in. So this question does impact what you end up doing afterwards. And as much as possible, if you're able to at least know the general area you want to work in and talk to some people, it's going to be very helpful to you. Karen, additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's great advice, Yulia. I agree 100% with you. I don't think you have to know exactly what job you want, but if you at least have it narrowed down somewhat, if you know, hey, this field interests me. So I heard Jessica talking about how she wanted to be a director of public health. Now there's lots of subspecialties within public health, and I don't know if you need to know all that, but if you know, okay, public health is it, that's a pretty good narrowing down. But if you still have lots of varied interests, that's a good indication that maybe taking a year off at least to work, gain other life experiences, it might really give you that sort of that space to narrow it down a bit more before you begin such a huge endeavor.
I completely agree with that. So Karen, take us away to someone decides they want to go and now they're thinking of applying. What are your recommendations for the application process?
Okay, number one tip here is to start the process early. So most applications for graduate school are due at some point in the fall for the following fall. So start looking. Now's the time to start researching. If you're thinking about going to graduate school in fall of 2021, now's the time you should be really doing that homework, finding out if your program, what are their admission requirements, and really doing what you can on your part to making sure that you meet or exceed those admission requirements. Those requirements might include doing some type of entrance exam, like a GRE, like we mentioned before, and those aren't offered, they're only offered periodically, so you have to kind of sign up well in advance. Many and most, maybe all graduate programs require letters of recommendation, and you need to give your letter writers time. I would say give your letter writers at least 3 weeks when you ask them, and give them as much information as you can so that they're prepared. Making connections with program faculty. Jessica mentioned this, and I think this is a wonderful idea. It sets you apart from other applicants. And so how do you make a connection? What does it mean to make a connection? That can just be if you have questions about the program, which you probably do. That would be a way to introduce yourself, say that you're considering applying and you'd like to get a little more information, tell them what your interest areas are, and that's how you can make connections. Also, you want to pay attention to deadlines. So there's application deadlines for becoming a student. And then if you're also interested in applying for an assistantship or certain scholarships or fellowships, those may have separate deadlines. So, and they may also have a separate application process. So you kind of have to be juggling a lot. So that's why it's so important to start early, get all your deadlines and things kind of written out and planned out, calendar it all out, and just stay on top of it.
Excellent. Very good advice. Greg, do you have a couple more questions that we can bring up?
Yes. So this one is a little bit more just general. Is it possible, and would you recommend to do a master's part-time and work part-time outside of a university, or should a student focus full-time on their graduate degree and finish sooner?
My sense is yes, it's absolutely possible. Karen, what do you think?
Sure, I think that's a personal preference type of a question. Whatever works best for your own situation.
And typically GTAs and GRAs are 20 hours, and I found mine to be a very doable with a full 12 credit course load. Greg, do you have other questions?
Yes, this one will be for non-traditional folks. So the question is, could someone speak to the challenges to older, like early 50s people interested in PhD work?
Sure, Karen, can you answer that one?
Sure, I think the biggest challenge is the challenge in your head, is the challenge with yourself. Now, I only had 3 years in between my bachelor's degree and then going back for my master's degree. And even I had this sense of, oh my gosh, I'm going back to school, and have I already forgotten what I learned as an undergrad? Am I just going to be like overshadowed by my peers at this? Because I thought like maybe I lost a lot of knowledge. But there's such a range of students in grad school. You know, we have students from their 20s up through, I believe, their 70s at OSU. So there's really there's no age limit. And in fact, I think that an older student really brings a unique perspective to the program, because you have so many more life experiences and, you know, prior work experiences, that when you actually get to doing your PhD, your older students are typically very, very focused. You know what you're interested in, and you can bring that perspective to the table. So I would not let that stop you at all. If you're thinking about it, definitely go for it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karen. And next we have another poll question. It's our last one of today. And we're curious, the presenters and I are, what steps are you in regarding a graduate program? We'll launch that and then we'll have Greg read the results.
All right, as the results come in, it's really across the board. So it looks like the top two are just about even. So pretty sure I want to go is nearly half, and it's almost equaled with curious, just starting to think about it.
Great, thank you. And hopefully we gave great content for both of those sides. And if you are thinking about grad school and you're not sure what to do next, reach out to me and I'd be glad to talk to you about what would make sense for your career goals. And then we're going to finish off with our summary here. We're going to have Jessica share her summary points, and then we'll have Karen share hers.
Yeah, so just kind of reiterating what I said before, understanding your goals is huge, you know, and you're remembering your why, because I will say, in all honesty, there will be times where you ask yourself, why am I doing this? What was I thinking? Do I enjoy punishment? Because it's a lot of work. It is a commitment, like we said before. So really keeping in mind your goals and understanding why you're doing this, because it will fuel you through. And once you are done and you get out there and you get a job that you really enjoy because of it, you'll remember everything that was worth it. But just remember those goals and just let it keep pushing you through.
Thank you. Karen?
Okay, yeah. So I think maybe just sort of recapping the pros and the cons. So the benefits, like you can become an expert in your field. So that's really kind of intriguing and exciting. You can advance your career. You can have higher earning power. You can get that good job that many of you said you wanted. And the other, you know, considerations are that there's a lot of financial and just personal energy and time involved in getting a graduate degree. So it's a serious commitment that you should really think about before you move forward. And then just remember, if you are interested in applying, just to start that process early, plan ahead, and that most applications are due in the fall.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that summary. Greg, let's do one more question from the audience.
All right, so one last question. Is there any support for parents of young kids who want to pursue a graduate degree?
Karen, would you be able to answer that one?
Sure. So I think that's going to vary from institution to institution, what that support might look like. At OSU, if you were looking at a graduate degree, we have some resources on campus, the Family Resource Center, where they can help student parents with childcare subsidies. There are some childcare centers available on campus. And we also have the the HSRC, the Human Services Resource Center. And so they can help with basic needs for students and their families.
Thank you for sharing that, Karen. And we are wrapping up our webinar, so we'll just do a couple brief announcements and then we'll get everyone going on their day. I encourage all of you to join our LinkedIn group. So these are groups that are available to our alumni, students, and our faculty or staff. And it's our Beaver Careers LinkedIn group. And then you can message me one takeaway to get a free career consultation consultation. And we are offering free consultations to OSUAA members and also people who are recent graduates. So if you're in that recent grad group, I am here to help you with your career goals. And please do consider attending our next career webinar. This is part of our Success in Life series that we're doing for really for all of our alumni, but also for our students and the graduating class. And our next one is on online job searching 101, and that's on May 28th. So feel free to, or I highly encourage you to join us for that. And Jessica, I'm going to have you wrap up and share a little bit about what you would be willing to help people with, and then there's your LinkedIn link there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Julia said, that's my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me and send me a message. I have no problem answering some questions. Although I have my master's in public health, as I work with the grad school, I have a fairly good understanding of just kind of general graduate degree information. So feel free to reach out, and I can answer questions as much as I can, or if there's someone I can put you in contact with, I can definitely let you know that too.
Jessica, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and you being here for this webinar. Karen, also really very much appreciate your time. You're both great, gave such really amazing information for our students and our alumni. I really appreciate your time. Thank you both. And as always, I'm here to help you out as well. So feel free to contact me, email me any questions that you have. Karen, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say thank you. This has been great, and I have enjoyed this hour with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then we'll have Greg do the final wrap up for our webinar. And thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Julia, Karen, and Jessica. That was fantastic. And I did want to give just a little bit of information. I talked about professional and continuing education here at OSU. And the reason we like to partner with the Alumni Association and hear from our alumni, because we're often able to connect with the very widespread OSU network throughout not only the state of Oregon, but the US and beyond, for educational opportunities for personal enrichment and professional development. Each program we offer is designed for working professionals with convenient online classes and year-round start dates. We also offer customizable team training. And again, I want to thank Julia, Karen, and Jessica. We really appreciate having you here, and this was great, and you delivered a ton of great content. And with that, I will wrap it up and just say thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
Thank you.